for stopping by this AMA. Talk a little about Mythic. A little bit about myself. I work in kind of the private equity investing industry. Our team kind of has a group of different areas. We have some people kind of from more traditional finance that are kind of working on tokenomics. We have devs from different areas. So I'd say like we have devs who have worked on Lava, front end devs who have worked on like different, like I think doing the UI of Temple, these various different DFI projects in the past. So we have a pretty cool and core team that's kind of working pretty hard on this project. I've been working on it for a few months. The whole concept behind the project was very much so driven around what are the kind of the things to learn from some of the things that have happened in the past in the DeFi space. And for us, it was very much so something where we've been kind of in a DeFi space. We'd seen some of the big projects that were going on, things like Tomb, some of the node projects from the past, obviously some of the Ohm forks, and a lot of them, what ended up happening as we've kind of seen, not just because of this market, is that it was very much so sort of a money chasing money type situation for most of these, which in a way is what finance is, but and even what DeFi is, but very much so. It ended up being too much supply and kind of demand chasing demand. And so what we wanted to create with this project is something a little bit different, a little bit new, in the sense of being able to do something where we kind of created like what we think is probably going to be the next iteration of what DeFi is. It's really around this idea of GameFi, which is something which is kind of new. It's this idea that really like what crypto kind of enables is gamification, right? It's incentivizing human behavior in certain ways, and we saw that in the past in different DeFi type protocols, and in the ones that are kind of upcoming. There's now GameFi crypto funds that are launching, and this is potentially one of the areas which we think is could be the next wave. And really, by GameFi, what we mean is very simply incentivizing people to take certain actions and make it seem like a game, right? So the most illustrative version of this was something like a DeFi Kingdoms in the past, and so what we saw over there was it was really a DeFi protocol, but they gamified it. A lot of people came in, they knew what actions to take, and it kind of helped people progress along, right? It's if you, even if you zoom out, right, a lot of times, like even in regular society, in the traditional financial system, right, where you kind of either buy houses, get mortgages, take loans, things like that. A lot of those things are also gamified as well. So in the sense of people are incentivizing certain actions through behavior, and so we're kind of doing that with this new protocol. It's a little bit different. We pulled from some of the mechanics of some protocols from the past, things that we liked, like some of the seigniorage type stuff from the Tomb system. We liked some of the node stuff from the node systems we've seen in the past. We are not a node project. We are not really a Tomb project. We're very different, and also the gamification aspects of the DeFi Kingdoms. So yeah, I'll stop there, just to can go more in detail on things, but hopefully that was an
Okay.
overview.
Yeah, that was a great overview. We'll dive down a little deeper in a moment. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the team? Oh, you know what? Before you do that, is there a date that potential members or users of your project can sort of put on their calendar? I mean, when is the next um, uh, sort of milestone for you guys?
Yeah, so the next milestone is, I believe, well, the date hasn't released yet, but either end of May or like very early June, we'll be doing kind of our pre-sale, our land sale, and we can talk a little bit about the mechanics of how that will work and kind of what that means. But that's kind of the big upcoming item, which is like how if you get whitelist, you get a chance to basically mint some of our land. And there's a few different tiers; they do different things in our GameFi ecosystem.
Okay, and that will be at the end of May or perhaps early June.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the timeline.
So
So
yeah,
I guess
people
we are
need
kind
to.
of end of May now. So it'd be like the target right now for that is a week from today, actually. So I guess like it'd be kind of June.
Okay, yeah. So people need
Yeah.
to check in the next few days, and then more often leading up until they get an announcement with a set date. It's basically um, so yeah, go ahead and introduce Legendary. Legendary's on the stage for us, for those listening. He's having some microphone problems. We've all been there. Yeah, go ahead and tell us more about your team.
Um, yeah, no, for sure. So our team kind of has a few different backgrounds. So we have Legendary. He's kind of the project manager. Call him like head of the project. He has a background sort of in I think some IT, some VC. He's currently like in a VC investing type space. Been part of a lot of different DeFi projects before. Knows a lot of people in the past, but kind of his full time day job is more in the VC side, um, more traditional type VC. For me and another person named Rick, it's something where we both come from a traditional finance background. So I work for a pretty large investment fund. People would know the name. Got into DeFi sort of 8 or 9 months ago. Was pretty enamored by some of the things that I was seeing of what was possible, kind of in the future, as a lot of experimentation has happened. And Rick is an investment banker in currently an investment banker, I should say, for a large investment bank, kind of doing IPOs, SPACs, very similar in terms of the ideas of what tokenomics are, right? For um, for projects, right? Because when you issue a token, when you're having multiple tokens that work together, that's basically, in a way, a different form of equity. So very, very similar translation of experiences there. We've got Blackchain, who's doing the UI and helping with some of the marketing. And he did, I think, UI for Temple and Kepler, maybe. I can't fully remember, but I think that's right. And I think outside of that, his experience is mostly in marketing, digital marketing, and other areas outside of crypto, I should say. We have a few other people. Nixon is also helping out with marketing. And then we have a couple of devs, Cryptopus and Phoenix. Phoenix was a dev for Lava. He's doxed. I think Cryptopus is also doxed. So that's kind of or at least his community. So Cryptopus is our front end guy. He's done projects as well. And then Phoenix is our back end guy. Again, he did back end for Lava and a couple other projects. And then we have one or two others I want to say. Missing Vlad, who's been very helpful. He's kind of on the marketing team as well. And then Mythic, who's also on the team. He was kind of very much so focused on partnerships, uh, things like this, and working with other kind of DeFi communities and influencers and things like that. So I hope I didn't miss anyone, but I think that's the team.
Have you who's your MVP? No, don't answer that. Okay, well let's dive more into you guys have I think this is a totally unique feature where if you lose peg, all rewards stop. Isn't that correct?
Yeah. So there's this feature where all rewards generally will stop or be very, very, very minimized to kind of match. But yeah, for all intents and purposes, like if this protocol loses peg, uh, you kind of stop the rewards.
Yeah, I mean that's probably the only way to get things back on track, I would imagine. You guys have wonderful art and branding. Your white paper is really good looking. Um, I've got it on the video now. Okay, so pre-sellers, will they be buying Myth or Fortune?
So the initial pre-sale is going to be actually the equivalent of land,
Oh, it's
basically.
the
So you're gonna have,
land
yeah.
NFTs.
Right. So it's these NFTs. What they allow you to do in this protocol is what we have is that we have a staking system where basically these quote unquote adventurers are going on quests to basically helping them. That's the gamification part. And so you go on this quest, you stake this myth token, which in our case is the equivalent of the governance type token. Kind of very, very loosely, you could compare it to the T-share in Tomb, but like that's where we got the inspiration, but it's different mechanics. But basically, you stake these myth tokens as an adventurer, and basically, when you stake these myth tokens, you go fight for a certain amount of days. Call it 5 days, right? So you have 5 days where you're staking. You're earning this APR, which we show whatever it may be, and then basically you earn fortune reward by going on this adventure by completing this quest. The thing is, there's going to be like there are four different, or actually, there are three different kind of negative amplifiers basically when you complete that quest. So your character has health, it has stamina, it has like one other thing, but basically like every time you complete a quest, you lose 1 out of 5 of that health bar. And what that does is for the next quest, next time you stake, the next period called the next 5 day period, your APR might be slightly declined, or it might be slightly like a modified down, just to as something that happens when you go questing. You just kind of lose, and so your APR kind of decreases a bit, and so that means that your fortune basically decreases a bit. The fortune rewards that you get will decrease relative to the max that you could have if those stats were maxed. And so to get back to the max level, what you have to do is you have to basically pay a fee to the protocol. That fee goes into gets sort of paid to the landholders if the protocol is doing well, but it effectively is a burn mechanism for us where we're basically taking that and basically pulling that out of the protocol, as these fees are paid to these landowners, these tavern owners, these temple owners, and blacksmith owners. I think it goes tavern, blacksmith, temple in terms of the tiers.
Yes.
And so you pay these fees to these owners, or to the protocol, and then like it basically most of it gets burned, part of it gets airdropped, part of it gets sort of put into the special DAO pool, which has like other uses as well. But in effect, what we're trying to do is create a inherent burning mechanism for the token, which as TVL goes up, you basically have more and more burn, and that actually at a certain level, I believe it's like a few million of TVL. It kind of depends on what you set the burn rate at and things, but at some level of TVL, you basically are able to burn more than you mint to the landowners, because this land is a node. It is paying an APR to you in that sense, as long as things are above peg. But there's kind of this interesting kind of burn mechanism going on. So by owning this land NFT, you're basically have a chance to get kind of early access to this protocol, and if and when the protocol gets people in, adventurers in, money in, the upshot is that the value of this land probably will increase. And so
So
that's
wait, if you own land, you still have to pay the fee to use the heal mechanism?
well, if you own the land, it's two separate things, right? The landowners, you can be a landowner and an adventurer,
Right,
but
but
basically, like
you have
as
to
a
pay
landowner,
still even if you own the land, right?
yeah, as an adventurer, but you're getting uh, if the protocol's health is doing well, then like you're also getting airdropped
How
tokens
many
from
of
all
these
adventures.
how many NFTs are there?
We haven't fully released that yet, but you can say that like our initial, there's a very, very limited amount. So you can say that like the initial is in like the 50 to like low hundreds. It just kind of depends on where we are. But that's kind of like where we'll be for like there's different tiers. So there's a tier one, which is kind of the lowest tier. There's a tier two, which will cost a bit more. There's literally going to be, I think, I have to double check the numbers, but
And
max is like a couple of dozens.
you have to be fully healed to claim your adventure rewards, correct?
No, you don't have to be fully healed. You can keep going. But you'll just get lower APR than if you were fully healed. So basically, like you're taking part of the rewards that you're getting when you're staking and uh, paying part of that as fees, the way that the mechanics work, to fully heal. But it's your choice. The key point is that it's your choice to heal or not heal, to keep going with the protocol or not. It's just that if you don't heal for the next staking period, you're going to have a lower APR.
Oh, but you can still claim.
Yeah, you can still claim. You can definitely still claim.
Okay. So give us an idea of how um, much these healing fees are going to cost.
Yeah, I mean, so it's very much so. The way that it works is that it's like a percentage of the way that we mapped it out is that it's basically a percentage of the fortune rewards that you get. So you're basically taking X number of fortune that's getting paid out by the protocol based on the APR, and then like depending on the percentage, right? You're paying like I don't want to just throw numbers out. We have like a model that we built out that I don't have open in front of me right now, but basically you're taking like a piece of that, which is never going to be more than the actual reward, but that's kind of the fee that's being paid
And
to.
the fee is burned mostly, and some of it's airdropped to landowners. Is that correct?
If the protocol is doing well, some of it's airdropped to landowners, and it's mostly burned, but there's basically like even zooming out, right? Like the point of the protocol is to create this matic uh, kind of peg type token, which we can then use across kind of the Matic ecosystem, right? So part of it is that some of those fees are going to be used as reserve to basically push out the token to other protocols, and some of it's going to be directly burned. So like some of it we're going to hold to basically sell to other protocols to keep in their treasuries to kind of increase usage of this token, right? Because that's the end goal is to like push out usage of this token, and then like there's all sorts of other things you can do once like that starts to happen in terms of the value, right? Like the very, if I was to say like what the very end goal of this protocol is, and it's not really an end goal, it's kind of a vision. It'd be really interesting to see like a mem type thing happen with this fortune token, because mem basically is used everywhere in the AVAX system. There's all sorts of things you can do with it, and basically like it's something where because everyone holds min, it has value to the AVAX ecosystem, right? And so that's kind of the end goal. Part of those fees are going to go towards that, where we're basically going to create a pool of these tokens that are basically going to be sold to other protocols as treasuries, and then part of it's going to be burned, and then like uh, that's kind of the majority of of the fees.
Do you know how long your Genesis pool is going to last?
Like how many days is that you're
Yeah,
asking?
yeah.
Uh, it's a good question. I'd have to. I can't answer that currently.
How soon after the pre-sale do you expect to have the Genesis pool up and running and have the protocol up and running and paying Fortune tokens?
Yeah. So the goal is sort of it's kind of a staggered release, and obviously like we're all watching market conditions to see like how things are happening. Right now the back end is mostly done. We're working just to finish up the front end for stuff, but I'd say that, and don't hold me to this, but like the target we have for like the launch of the protocol is somewhere around like end of June, kind of early July, I'd say. But between then and now, between now and then, there's kind of we're going to be watching the markets. There's different kind of activities that we have planned between now and then, but um, I'd say that's probably a general time frame.
Is the launch of this project dependent on the success of the pre-sale?
Uh, I mean, I guess like we do need landowners, right? And the pre-sale money is actually not going to us. It's actually going to be funneled back into mostly, to be honest, kind of other marketing for like the larger launch. And so that's kind of the main area that that pre-sale money is going towards. So I guess like it's just a question of how much marketing we can do based on how much we raise, and that'll be more beneficial for the overall protocol.
Can you
But yeah,
share
I mean,
some
I
kind
think
of
like
numbers like what would you consider a small marketing campaign budget? And what would you consider like imagine that you guys got $1 million in the pre-sale. Like how much would be a large marketing budget?
I mean, $1 million, consider that to be pretty large. I mean, we're not aiming to raise $1 million for the pre-sale.
Well, I would hope that if you raised $1 million, you wouldn't spend it all on marketing. Um,
Yeah, yeah. If we raised $1 million, right? Like honestly, like our very upper bound of what we hope to potentially raise from a pre-sale, and again, this pre-sale even will be tiered to just kind of time sort of the market and time how the community's growing and things. But like really, like we're kind of doing a tiered approach where we're gonna release some of the land, then we're gonna release like the tier 2 of the land and tier 1 of the land over like the coming weeks. But the goal would be kind of a max of yeah. I mean, like the goal is kind of like somewhere in the low hundred thousands of total capital raised from the pre-sale before the Genesis pools, and that's kind of where we'd be in terms of the marketing budget. Like that all depends on like how much we raise, right? I mean, I'd say that if we were to raise like let's just use 100 grand as a number, and obviously like it doesn't scale to 1 million because that's a huge marketing budget. But if we're to use 100 grand as the amount raised from the pre-sale, right? I'd imagine that like 75% of that would go, 75 to 80% of that would go directly to two different marketing initiatives. If we were to go to like 200,000, then maybe that's a little bit, maybe that's similar, maybe that's a little lower. It just kind of depends on kind of where we are. But like, yeah, we're not really aiming for that like
what kind of
500K.
strategies for marketing are you looking at?
Yeah, so we are doing we are connecting to various kind of influencers, YouTube influencers in the DeFi space. I think we have a couple kind of on deck. Legendary, I don't know if Legendary can talk to that. Outside of that, we're connected to a couple of crypto marketing agencies that we can kind of use and use work through their influencer networks. There's different Discord and AMA groups that we plan to kind of utilize for marketing as well to be a bit more organic, along with kind of various uh, monetized ways to kind of incentivize the right type of invites into our server. So there's kind of different strategies, right? Because there's obviously the acquisition part, and then there's the retention part, right? The retention part is the hype, the community building, people believing in the vision of the project. The acquisition is kind of getting the message out there. So most of that is going to go towards the acquisition through these different channels, both influencer and organic.
I see. So mostly we're talking about advertising on crypto-centric websites and also having YouTubers and Twitter crypto personalities uh, sort of promoting the project.
Right, and then once you get to a certain scale of so once we get to a certain scale of like size, right? Like we're chatting with different groups as well, like the Polygon Alliance and other groups as well to get kind of more. I guess we have a partnership with Chainlink already. I think that was released, but like to get like different validations as well, right? So it's very much so like a synergistic thing, right? Where like you market some, you get more market validation, you get kind of other people to kind of want to join your group, and whether those are organizations like Chainlink or the Polygon Alliance or whatever else, and that's kind of how this thing grows, right? So that's very much so the strategy that we're going to use, along with, as mentioned, organic type monetized invite mechanisms and other things.
We've got a question from LeVar Burton. He says, "What happens if your player character dies?" And I think we covered that. There's a lot of penalties. So your character doesn't die, correct? But as your health gets low, you get less rewards. As your durability gets down, you get less rewards. And as your stamina goes down, it takes longer to complete these quests. Is there anything I'm missing?
Uh, yeah, I mean, there's I think a failure mechanism. So there's one which directly reduces APR, and it goes up to I think 25% below the max. There's one where like it's a percentage of failure, which is basically like if you go down 5 10 like if you decrease kind of 25%, or sorry, I should say like if after 5 days you're at 75%, what that means is that you have a 75% chance of succeeding and 25% chance of failing. Um, and basically, what uh, what that means is that like you don't get any rewards at that point if you don't heal, and obviously you start at 100%. And then the third one I think is the quest days. So each hit point you go lower out of that five is basically you add an extra day for how long your staking takes. So basically, in effect, you're losing time, right? So you're losing APR.
Right.
And so like there are different negative modifiers. People can pick whatever they want. No one's going to tell you what to do or not to do. There's going to be optimal strategies for different things. It's going to choose your own adventure in that sense. Once you go to zero, that just means that you're at 75% chance at all three of those modifiers. You can't go below that.
Awesome. I think that answers your question, LeVar Burton. He also asks, does recruitment mode or can it go on indefinitely? Meaning you guys lose peg, rewards stop, and is there ever sort of a point where the I think you see where I'm going with this. Do you want to
Yeah,
answer that?
sure. I mean, like when we talk about DeFi protocols, right, in general, any of these protocols where you're kind of printing tokens or like making tokens, there's always going to be kind of that downward pressure, right? And there's different things you can do to kind of alleviate that pressure, which is basically, I guess, the very, very high level is gamifying it, right? Which is the recruitment side of pushing the community and communities around to basically push it above peg, right? But beyond that, though, there's different things, right, which we're implementing to really try to like keep these things above peg. One is that burn mechanism. One is like certain amounts that I mentioned when we go to the DAO fund, which a lot of that is going to be used as sort of an arsenal of cash to uh, if we need to use part of that for keeping the peg that's there. The third part is obviously going to different ecosystems to buy our token, right? That is a use case of this token. And as it permeates across more and more systems, so to speak, right, it becomes harder for that to kind of fall below peg and lose value because it's a valuable token to a lot of different communities, right? And so um, there's no like a one silver bullet, right, to say, hey, like we know for a fact that this is going to be able to come back above peg. Like that's just not a truthful or fair thing to say. I don't think any DeFi protocol can say that about the price of a token, unless you're kind of fully collateralized to USD, like USDC or something, right? But you're very much so utilizing these different ways to again have that gamification and then add different elements from different protocols in the past and kind of like put it together in a way that will hopefully be able to keep it above peg for longer, which is what we expect both in the burning mechanism and otherwise. And then when it goes below peg, have enough kind of community support to be able to pull it up. And that's also why the rewards are meant to be mostly cut at that point because you want all your stakeholders to be swimming in the same direction.
How would you explain Mythic to someone completely new to DeFi? So, for instance, when we first introduced this, you referenced DeFi kingdoms. We've got some tomb fork terminology. We've got NFTs, GameFi. So give it your best shot. Explain this to somebody who has never been introduced to DeFi.
Sure. So let me. Okay, that's a good question. So from a system level, you have certain currencies like the US dollar, the euro, right? And there's different reasons that they hold value. One is that they are used for trade, right? Most currencies that exist in different ecosystems are used for trade. And once people start trading these currencies more and more, they get used by more and more people. They become the default kind of call it store of value or token in that system. And that's kind of how most reserve currencies have been created, right? Or most currencies, whatever, right? Call them the token or whatever you want to call it, right? The min is the analogous here in the Avalanche system in to the call it the USD today. And so what we're trying to do is basically create something similar where we have a tradable token, right, that goes and trades across different ecosystems and different protocols within the Matic ecosystem, which we're long term pretty bullish on, but doesn't really have too many of these, and so very much so like we're trying to create that, but doing that in a way very similar to the way that you're told. I mean, very very high level, right? Like in the U.S. in a lot of first world countries, you're kind of pushed to save for retirement, right? Like get your 401k, put money for retirement, put it in there versus, and a lot of it's like gamified, right? You go on your Fidelity and you pick your 5 different options or things like that, right? In a way, like society itself is also gamified in that way. But the thing that we're trying to, in like pushing people to certain decisions, what we're trying to do is like bring that gamification. And another example of gamification would be like you being in an in-game, whatever virtual, pick your favorite great game, right? And like there's different incentive mechanisms to buy new swords or whatever, right? That's another aspect of gamification. But basically bring that like a need to gamified to basically into DeFi, into this protocol, and call it GameFi, which again, as mentioned in the beginning, that's kind of where a lot of like the interest is, right? How do you gamify, whether it's loyalty points for your next Starbucks reward card or whatever else, right? These things to incentivize human behavior. So we're just taking that element that has already existed both outside of crypto and in crypto, and applying that to this idea of, hey, like it'd be great to have this token that is tradable, that a lot of people own, that makes it valuable to the system, and kind of combining those together into this kind of different protocol that again is trying to pull different pieces of things that have existed in the past to create something that we think is kind of new in the space and has different mechanics than that which came before.
Okay, so can you break down the Genesis pool? How much of the proceeds will go to the liquidity of the I don't know if it's whether it's fortune or myth. It seems like you stake myth to get fortune, and then you stake fortune to get myth, and then I guess they both will have their own liquidity pool. Is that
Yeah,
how
they're
that
both
works?
gonna have their own LPs. As far as the actual Genesis pools, that's kind of been a source of debate of how we want to specifically do that, quite frankly. But you can imagine that it'll be kind of a Matic or USDC type pools for either different ones for Myth and Fortune, or maybe like you just put it into one and you get airdropped a certain amount of Myth and Fortune type thing. But we're figuring, like we're finalizing those details, and we'll definitely share that with our community and you guys.
Do you guys have a rough estimate of how that's going to break down? I mean, can you give us like a really vague number? Is it going to be more than 50% or less?
More than 50% what? Sorry.
The uh, the yield from the Genesis pools, will more than half of that go into the liquidity pool for the I suppose it would be
Oh,
the fortune token, wouldn't it?
yeah. I mean, like there'll be a Myth one and a Fortune. If you're asking like how much of it's going into like the protocol, then like north of 75-80%, right? Like there's going to be some that goes to the DAO fund, and then like I don't know if all these tokens have been released, but like less than kind of, I don't know, 5 or 10% going to the team, but that's really most of it's going to go to the DAO fund and
Is
things. So like, but yeah, 75-80% plus of that is going straight to the LPs, and then
is
X% for marketing.
after the Genesis, I heard you say 5 to 10% to the team. After the Genesis pool ends, what is the main function by which the team compensates themselves?
It'll just be the printing of fortune, where basically 80% are. Don't hold me to this final number because we haven't really released it, but let's just ballpark say like 80% goes to rewards, X% goes to whatever, and then obviously the mint will be printed, and it's going to be kind of similar, where 80% goes to rewards, like 10% will go to the DAO/marketing, and then like 5% will go to operations type of thing, right? So, but the vast majority of fortune that's printed, along with Myth that's printed is going to go straight to rewards.
Is there anywhere that this is broken down? I'm pretty familiar with your white paper and your medium. Um, mm, I just wonder, are you guys planning on hammering down these details before the pre-sale?
Uh, yeah, I mean, I think most of it's mostly iron, so we can probably release that prior to the pre-sale. But I would say those numbers I put out here is pretty close. Again, the point is basically like uh, some piece of it goes to marketing, but 80+% of it is going straight to rewards for people.
If any listeners have any questions and would like to join the stage, please raise your hand. We'll take your questions. We have plenty of whitelists to give away. You can also ask your questions in the Mythic X AMA chat box, and if we've missed any questions, go ahead and repost them. Um, Bull Lord says, "What was the inspiration behind Mythic?" And yeah, if you guys want to raise your hand, we'll pull you on stage right away. Um, I guess tell me a little bit more about this light and dark battle ace.
Uh, yeah. So that's going to play into the storyline which we have. If you join our Discord, one of the things that we have for community is this story that we have going in the background of Leviathan, who is the evil person, but kind of somewhat controls the dragon and other mythical characters in this realm, or some of them, I should say. And so there's kind of a light path and a dark path that's kind of going on, and it'll play into the story and kind of in the future iterations of the protocol where we create different kind of even I don't want to say like hold me to this, but like there's going to be different parts of the protocol where at least this light and dark path is going to play into the different rewards that you can get in terms of a storyline, and that's going to happen in the future post kind of this initial launch. But it's meant to be sort of a little bit kind of like those Dungeons and Dragons or those very early type games where you kind of have different paths you can take, and you can kind of gain or not gain things based on the different pieces of the storyline that you choose to follow.
And this will result in a higher APR.
At some point, yeah, it could result in modifiers. I think there's a goal kind of in the future to start the character won't be like specific NFTs where things are attached to for V1 of it, but like V2 of the protocol, which is going to be kind of further down the line. We'll have different sort of modifiers, and those will likely tie to parts of the storyline.
What is your attitude towards this uh, dark days of DeFi that we're in right now? Are you guys prepared to postpone the launch um, again, or are you guys sort of gonna launch come hell or high water?
I mean, it's a really good question, right? To ask yourself, like obviously we want this protocol to be successful. We have everything kind of in place to launch by end of June, early July. So this protocol will launch. The pre-sale will happen, right? It's just a question of what the demand is. As you said, like with the UST drop, where we lost 60 billion of TVL, which kind of sucks for everyone, and unfortunate incident. It's obviously not like a great time to necessarily like be in DeFi. I think anyone who wanted to launch would have loved to launch 5 months ago, or maybe even like 5 months from now. I don't really know. But that's something which we are keeping like an eye on. And all I can really say is that like it is kind of a tough time out there. We think we have kind of a pretty unique type protocol, and we hope people are going to be able to see it. We're going to focus on what we can control. Like personal, not protocol opinion. I have hopes that the worst is sort of behind us, and we see signs of stabilization in in the markets. I think JP Morgan just yesterday published a report that said their fair value of market value of Bitcoin's 38K. ETH, I think, probably north of 2K. So like we're below those, whatever those fair market values are. But obviously, like when you have a mark to market type system, which is the trading of coins on exchanges, then it's hard to really know, like what the true bottom is, what the sentiment is. So yeah, we'll be kind of tracking that. I think similar to most other people in the space, we're very, very bullish medium to long term. It's just kind of a question of like, what's the right way to get from where we are today to where we need to be, right? And if that's kind of a smaller scale launch, if that's sort of judging the market, talking to our community, we're going to kind of figure out what's best in that sense. But yeah, I'd say that like for now, if we kind of stabilize where we are and things seem okay, then like I'd say like that time frame I gave you like is pretty should be pretty solid.
What's your attitude towards uh, paying for marketing in sort of a um, I guess what I'm trying to ask is how comfortable, how transparent will you guys be with your marketing budget? I mean, I understand that there's a dynamic where it's not cool to publish prices if you work with somebody. Let's say that person makes a video for you. It's not really standard that people say, "Oh yeah, they charged me this amount," and then some other project says, "Well, they charged me that amount." But on the other hand, there needs to be some sort of transparency in terms of marketing budget. Can you just sort of speak on that? I know that's not a very direct question, but
Yeah, I mean, like we're going to be as transparent as possible. And in terms of specific prices, like as everyone kind of knows, like different people, depending on who you know, how you get there, like different people charge different prices. But the good thing about blockchain is that everything is auditable, right? So if you have a community wallet and you say, hey, like X amount went to this person, or even if you blind the names, right, and you just say, I don't know, like YouTube or whatever type thing, like that's very, very achievable and doable, and we would honestly probably want that to happen, right? Because at the end of the day, it's community funds that are going to build this project. But yeah, I don't know necessarily like from a specific price number, like how to guarantee that we're getting like the price that some call it influencer or some AMA group promised one person versus us. Like I think that's kind of a hard thing to kind of manage. But on the on the flip side, I think we definitely believe in transparency of where the funds is going. As mentioned, like none of this initial stuff is going to the team outside of kind of paying some of the devs, and there's some expenses we paid up front that we'll probably like if we raise enough money reimburse, but mostly it's going to go again mostly to depending on the tiers amount to marketing.
Gosu wants you to reiterate what the marketing plan is. Um, can you give us any sort of specifics in terms of um, who you've been talking to? Do you have any partnerships already in place? I know you mentioned a couple, but I'm looking for alpha that hasn't been released yet here.
Uh, I can name some. I feel like Legendary is kind of very, very much more connected to that side. I don't know if he got his mic working yet, Legendary. But we're definitely talking to a. Oh, he's raising his hand, so maybe he can answer that question for us more than.
Nah, that's me inviting him to speak.
Oh, just kidding. Yeah, I guess like alpha wise, I'm trying to. I mean, like Legendary kind of has like the whole list of people that we've already been talking to. We've been talking to some decently sized projects already. We've talked to Union Transparency, who have kind of already kind of loved our project. They kind of want to see a few milestones happen, but like they're kind of they love it from my understanding. And so we have that. We've got a couple. I think Castle maybe that we've been talking to. I don't remember the actual name. In terms of
A D
doing
firm?
different collabs. Sorry.
Is it D firm?
Maybe I am not like in talk in these conversations like interviews. I'm just going off of
I
like
like how you
playing
called them
telephone
Castle. I wonder if they would call your project Dragon.
here. Yeah, well, I'm playing telephone here, so very much so, kind of in something along in that area. But trying to do collabs with them, I think, is going to or projects like that or different communities is going to also be kind of a key part of the marketing strategy. I don't think I really touched on that before, but we're talking to different DeFi protocols and figuring out ways to partner and have community with them outside of, as I mentioned already, having connects at various crypto marketing agencies, such as like a Blockwiz or some of those, along with kind of different other influencer networks. I think we have one video with an influencer already kind of confirmed, even before. I don't know if it's gonna happen right before pre-sale or like right after pre-sale, but like different areas like that. And then, as mentioned, different paid strategies for organic invites that incentivizes the community to want to either invite their friends or post and things like that. So it's going to be kind of a pretty broad-based strategy. I think the only way that you can kind of see what's working is to put a little bit towards these different things and see what's getting the highest return. Then investing more and more towards those things, right? Because you want to be very data and metrics driven when you're doing this, but also very understanding of the fact that we are kind of in a unique environment as well. So again, it's going to be like very much so. We're not going to spend like if we have like call it again. I'm going to use like 100. If we had like a 50K or 80K marketing budget, we're not going to just like drop it all on 10 YouTube influencers, right? Like that's not at all the expectation or the goal. It's going to be all right. Let's see what's working, see what's kind of not working, and then just put money towards different strategies and ideally get people the right type of people for our community in.
How do you feel about haggling with these influencers? Is that something that you guys have been engaged in, or is it sort of they give you a pricing sheet and you say, you know, we'll think about it?
Yeah, I mean, like a
This
lot of
more
times
of
the negotiation, right?
Legendary's this is more of Legendary's job.
Yeah, this is more legendary and mythic. Honestly, I don't know if mythic is able to come on stage. I don't know if any will put there, but basically, very much so. Again, right, like for these influencers, a lot of it's like this is marginal cost zero for them, right? To create another video, it costs them zero almost. They're just getting paid for it. So the price sheet is the price sheet. What has worked in another market environment may not be the amount that goes today. You know, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Just in
I was
terms of
talking to a YouTuber who is very active in DeFi. I guess I'd say he is a DeFi YouTuber. And what he told me is that he's not doing any DeFi videos right now. The reason being that his numbers are simply better if he talks about Bitcoin going down, right? Like if he talks about Bitcoin going down, he's getting way more clicks than if he talks about Sphere going down, right? Or even Luna going down. Although I'm sure Luna had its, I mean, everybody was tweeting about damn Luna, and I know why. It's because that's what is trending, right? People are gonna say, "What the hell is going on in Luna?" and they're gonna click on one of the Luna crash tags to see what is going on. So, have you experienced this at all? That the influencers they sort of want to go, like you said, where the analytics are driving them?
well, it depends on what I mean, and at the end of the day, right? For these influencers, they're trying to monetize these things, right? YouTube is the number one Web2 kind of monetization platform, even more than Instagram or TikTok or whatever else. They pay the most. I think north of 50% goes back to the content creators, right? Instagram, Facebook is like 0%. It's very, very different models. So it depends on how many clicks they're getting. If it's a giant YouTuber with hundreds of thousands of followers or views, then maybe they want more views right now. If they're kind of a smaller one, maybe they're looking for ads, or not ads, like to do YouTube review videos, right? But a big part of it, right? And this is something I think in the DeFi scene, which is kind of especially in DeFi or GameFi and even NFTs in these different areas of crypto now, trying to cut through the crowd, right, of all these different projects is a little bit something that like needs to be done, right, to prove like, hey, like this, everyone says that their project is different, right? But then the question is like, how do you present it? How can you show people that this is different from what's come before? And a lot of it comes like down to conversations, right, and having people try to make exceptions for your project, just by helping them if that's what it takes, right? For certain people who are either attractive or want to do that, right? Because if you can do that, one of those is worth more than like the influencer that every day is posting the next project, the next project, the next project, right? Because I don't know, at some point their community even gets a little bit desensitized, especially in this market where a lot of people have lost a lot of money. And so it's kind of like trying to find those value influencers, right? The ones which you kind of have to do a bit more work. It's not just a price sheet type thing. I think that's going to be kind of pretty important here, right? And a lot of it's going to be like networking, right? And that's a lot of what we're trying to do is directly reach out, being like, hey, like just hear our pitch for 10 or 15 minutes, and we can talk about money or ways to be involved, whether that's you want part of the tokens or whatever else. So that's I think like a better strategy than just going down that price sheet. It really is all about networking.
Yeah, and haggling. I had somebody offer me a KYC, and I don't even want to say the price that they offered, but I
Right.
I didn't know who they were at first, so I just countered with a number that is impossibly low, something like 6% of what they offered or what their first offer was, and and
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, we're at this time now too, right? In crypto and DeFi, like where a lot of the great companies, like everyone keeps bringing this up, like were built in the bust of the dot-com boom. But like if you can somehow like hustle and make it, for lack of better terminology, in this environment, then like you're going to be pretty well set, kind of coming out of this, right? So for that, like it is a little bit of a hustle game, to try to get a little bit beyond this, but also being very, very real to influencers, right? Like the worth of an influencer today is probably, I don't know how much is crypto fallen, like 80% less than its all time highs. So it's something where like whatever the all time high price of an influencer was, like that is not worth its monetary value as much, right?
right, right. It's a
And
good
that's just kind of
good point.
the truth.
Very good point. The farther that crypto falls, the less money there is that are going to be going into the projects, and the click-through rate is going to be lower. I mean, most people right now, I totally get it. If I was a crypto influencer, I'd also be sort of biding my time because um, the feedback is just so low, and people are looking away from the market. They don't want to be reminded what their portfolio looks like today, right?
Yeah, yeah, no, I mean totally.
People
It's
aren't thinking about where to put their extra money. They're trying to get money, not spend it. Um, it's
yeah. I
the
mean
t
the good thing is that like there's still a huge amount of unlike the last crypto winters, there's still a huge amount of VC money flowing into the space, for good projects, right? And for real kind of value add. I think the term utility up until about 2 months ago probably was kind of very, very broadly utilized. A lot of things that I don't know, people called basically everything utility. Like, oh yeah, like look, we can stake this. That's utility. It's like that's not really utility. That's just you staking it and getting another token. That's not actual utility. It's very much so like a thing that's been used, and that's what caused the speculation bubble, right? But I think now we're getting to this phase, hopefully, where the true utility, and I'm using that in a more narrow sense, type projects are the ones that are actually funded, and the ones that are by community or by VC or whatever, right? Because we realize that most 80-90% of projects are going to fail, and that's the same in every other industry where 80-90, like two-thirds of startups fail, right? In more developed industries, sometimes higher than that. So that's just something that's the risk you take, right? Kind of investing in any of these projects with a huge upside if it works out, but loss. And that's where like you obviously like we just as leaders of our communities also just need to be very very like clear to our people that we shouldn't be over investing, right? That's in this market or in any market really, right? But we are where we are. I think like the good projects, and I hope Mythic has a shot to be one. Like we never want to guarantee success. That's like not something that I think anyone can do. But the good projects hopefully will have a chance to kind of shine over time.
Yeah, the best projects will come out of this crypto winter with wings. That's very, very hard to achieve with most models. It seems like you guys have a variable APR model sort of built in, right? That's why there's no details about APR. Um, something like
Yeah,
that
yeah.
might
I mean, and that's the other point, right? Sorry, go ahead.
something like that might get you through.
Well,
With DreamFi, we're talking about um, lowering the APR very low because we are hoping to make it through. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
at least catch some upside once the market bounces. Some people say, well, what's going to cause the market to go back up? And I think I can answer that. Um, y- the big event is going to be another congressional spending bill, right? These are always uh, not just bullish. I mean, this is the market, right? The market is central banks printing money and inflating everything, right? The everything bubble is not over. It's not going to be a um, a slow crash like this, right? It's going to be Armageddon when the everything bubble pops. Right now, there is some air being let out for sure. I mean, obviously, but they're not done printing money. The bubble's not going to pop until the monetary system changes. Um, Now,
yeah,
there's other things going on. The dollar is still raging, although it's been dropping for over a week. Bond yields, and I know this is crypto is global, and I'm only talking about America, but I believe that um, America is sort of the best um, uh, indicator. You know, if American bond yields start to fall, that's bullish, right? If the dollar falls, that's bullish somehow.
yeah. I
Um,
mean, I think you bring up a couple interesting points, right? The first interesting point you bring up is the part around the variable interest rate, and this is a flaw. I think a lot of DeFi kind of, I don't want to call it a flaw, but I want to say like it's like a thing that was pretty interesting to me when I like first started digging into this, where like the idea of the smart contract that can somehow predict human like protocol behavior across time and like things where everything's coded into like a variable APR and says, all right, in this step function XYZ. I think that's a very hard thing to truly implement because it's hard to truly understand what happens in behavior, right? What is the behavior of people in a complex system, right? Even and the Federal Reserve is very very different, but like they don't have like a set thing, right? Like they meet every month to kind of basically see what's happening in the economy and then react to that, right? And so that's really how like these DeFi protocols should be set. Like you shouldn't be printing forever. You shouldn't be offering the same APR depending just given that's what you decided on day one, even though like day 50 it might be a very very different environment in terms of the tokenomics, the people, the community, right? It needs to be changed based on behavior, and so I think like it's really important to be able to control some of those levers, right? Because it's impossible to be able to predict what's going to happen, and no system is foolproof to be able to count on through different market conditions, community conditions, whatever, right? So having those levers to pull, and that's the reason that we haven't really released like a this is X% APR that's always going to be this forever, right? Because like we don't want to promise something that's going to hurt the protocol in the future. Just like the Fed meets and they say, all right, like this is what's going on in this economy, whatever. This is we're going to set X interest rate. We're going to buy X bonds, whatever else, right? Or the ECB or whatever else. They do that so that they can be responsive to market conditions, and that's really really important when you're thinking about creating the DeFi protocols type thing, because you can't predict that. On part two, I think you said like some pretty important things about the everything bubble. Yeah, I mean, like I think when you think about like what's going to turn this around, I mean the core number that everyone's watching is U.S. inflation and global inflation, right? There are starting to be these signals that some of it has kind of at least topped out. There are whispers that June, July, August, or June, July might be kind of the last 50 basis point hikes. And then if inflation is kind of coming down, we saw housing prices crash recently in the US. We're starting to see, I work in private equity, right? I have like dozens of, I mean, my fund owns like hundreds of companies. We're starting to see like just on the tip of the iceberg, consumers, at least in the US, start to pull back, right? When you see your 401k crashing, when you see different things crashing, it leads to kind of a decline in demand or less need to go out, right? Like your gas prices are rising, things like that. But also it's psychological, right? You're seeing business leaders trying to start to pull back, as well in terms of spending. And so those are all kind of, ironically enough, positive indicators for the Fed, because like those signal very very early on that we're starting to see a little bit of a pullback in spending, which is like what they wanted to do. So we'll see what happens, right? I don't. There's a couple other things like the Fed can't raise like interest rates to 4 or 5% because the interest that the U.S. government pays would just go completely bonkers, and a huge part of the tax base would then start paying that. You also have kind of this year is kind of one of the last years of the baby boomer generation kind of retiring or starting to retire. Like most of them are going to be retired in the U.S. and when that happens, you see consumption patterns kind of decrease as well. So that's actually deflationary in nature, as people save more and spend less. Right, the group that spends the most are people in their working years, really in like your 40s, so to speak, is when you have your highest spending capability. So this is something where like I think it's all things to watch. I I would be surprised if the Fed is going to or is able to tighten to the levels that it was in like even 5 years ago. I don't really see that as kind of a something that's very likely. I mean, when you talk about long term demographics, right, you're actually more likely to have deflation than pure inflation, just given consumer patterns and spending patterns. But yeah, for the next few months, it's going to be hard to see risk assets break out of where we are, and that's just probably the truth, right?
Yeah, because bonds are still high, the dollar is still high, inflation is still surging. Things like gas prices are taking away from people's ability to buy crypto or stocks. I mean, if you're middle class, most of your stock buying comes from your paycheck. Just automatically goes into a retirement plan. Um, so it especially impacts crypto, where people that are paying much, much more for their groceries and their gas and their living expenses, heating their house, for instance, than they were a year ago. These are people that um, only have a fraction of the extra money that they used to. Um, so
Yeah,
there's
but
a
I mean,
lot of factors working against us.
yeah, but I mean, like the other part to watch is really the institutions and the wealthy, right? That's where most of the money is aggregated. I mean, retail is really really important, but a lot of this drop in crypto at least has been obviously retail kind of somewhat capitulating, but also kind of institutions somewhat capitulating
Yeah.
as well. So it's very much so like where are we in this cycle? When do institutions start pulling back in? The smart money is always going to be the first one that goes back in, right? I mean, already you're seeing kind of some people start to dollar cost average back in, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So
I've been recommending it the whole time. I mean, people who are DCAing should not stop. If your plan was to DCA, do not stop when the price starts to go down, you know. But as far as big events go, yeah, look for a congressional spending bill. Look for the Federal Reserve to stop raising rates and, in fact, to start buying assets again. These are the bullish signals that mark the tops and bottoms of market and have so for like 15 years. Quantitative easing is what ended the 2008 crash. The market kept going up unbelievably this whole time. It's been going up since 2008. And with only minor, if you look at the chart, sure, there was some problems, some minor hiccups in 2016, 2018, and obviously the COVID crash. But just look at how the COVID dip got bought up. Of course, we're back around those same levels now. Um,
yeah, I mean, like let's be honest, right? Like this is a money when you're on fiat system, it is a money printing system, right? Like what is money? It's a way to incentivize people to do things, right? It's a social IOU, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I mean, like we're in something where I think the key things to watch for is an end to the Russia-Ukraine war, or anything along those lines. It's a decrease in inflation prices, or sorry, in inflation, and it's kind of also, frankly, just looking at the supply chains of the world because that's what really drove kind of the inflation up. Right, was there was just like a lack of stuff
right.
everywhere, right, when we had a bunch of new money flushed into the system. And so like we're starting to see the supply chains kind of ease. I think another indicator that's probably going to be interesting to watch is what happened was that all these retailers started stocking huge amounts of inventory. Like there's excess inventory kind of in the system, at least in the US. Maybe in other places too. I imagine other places also. And once the demand crash hits, I think like in the coming months, you're going to start to see liquidations of this. One of my portfolio companies is one of the largest distributors of toys, and they're assuming that like there's going to be a huge discount thing happening. There's going to be discount wars basically this winter during Christmas or holiday season. Because there's just going to be a huge amount of inventory that was built up, and then right around now we're seeing consumer pullback. So I don't know. There's early indications that the inflation story may actually be kind of peaked, but if that happens, then kind of, and I think some of the markets, like today, the markets have started to price that in a little bit. That's why the not crypto markets, but like the Nasdaq and some stock markets kind of
Yeah.
have jumped because the I think the narrative now is like, all right, if by July things kind of peak and or things start decreasing, then like that's kind of the potentially the end of kind of rate raises at least. So I don't know. It's things that you kind of got to watch on. I think fundamentally for crypto, you have to look at what's happening with the VC money, the smart money. You got to look at how those projects are being used for actual use cases, and is that being
Do
used
do
for
you
for
think
stuff on
that
the
the
blockchain?
and I could have the answer to this, but I don't have the information in front of me. Is the VC inflow money, how does it compare to 2021 so far? I mean, is it a fraction or is it the same or is it more?
Yeah, I mean, just yesterday, right? Andreessen Horowitz announced a $4.5 billion fund that they just raised, A16Z, a crypto specific fund. They're very bullish in the space. They think they think now all the smart entrepreneurs are jumping in. A lot of money is there. A lot of developers are there. Like this is kind of they see it as the golden era coming up in Web3 at least, right? And I almost distinguish Web3 from crypto in the sense that crypto is like in a way very degen. People looking for flips, things like that. Web3 to me, like what these funds are really investing in is our teams and people that are looking to build real world utility use cases. And some of that's obviously in DeFi, but a lot of it is kind of trying to see how you can take things in society that people will pay for and bring them onto to blockchain, right? And so that's very much so the excitement there that's coming in as real entrepreneurs are coming into the space who've built things in the past, who understand how business works, as opposed to I think what we've had in at least the traditional DeFi space up to now is a lot of devs and a lot of experimentation, which needs to happen obviously. But so they're bullish. I think I want to say like 4 billion was raised this quarter, but like it doesn't seem to be stopping because I was
Right.
looking at like some of the stats in terms of that because people are still very medium or long term bullish on the space.
Oh, that guy, he had his hand up, and I was very suspicious because he had just come in, so he wanted to talk, but he didn't want to listen, and then he was impatient and he left. So my gut was correct not to bring that guy on stage immediately. He was some sort of up to no gooder. Um, let's go ahead and tell people how they can get their whitelist for all the people that are in the audience. Um, how can they get a Mythic X whitelist?
Yeah, so I think we actually just sort of changed that process recently. So it used to be that you had to do a few different things for it.
Well, I
Um,
meant for the giveaway, for those who will receive the whitelist giveaway. How can they go ahead and secure their spot?
oh, for this AMA,
Yes,
is that
sir.
what you mean? Uh, that's honestly a question probably for Legendary and Mythic, but I think that we're just kind of giving it to people who
Well, I
show
mean,
up. I
do
don't know
they
the numbers.
should they DM you or should they open a ticket or should they go into your Discord and go to the main chat and
Oh, got
go
it. Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, just um we'll take a screenshot right now of people in here. If you guys just want to take a screenshot of your screens that you were in here at some point, then that would probably be the best way, and just kind of yeah, shoot us a ticket or just DM Legendary on in our group, uh, or honestly any of the admins. I don't know how many of us have DMs open, but just shoot us a DM or create a ticket, and just say, hey, I was in the Fear versus Greed AMA, and then we can just kind of get that rolling.
I'm going ahead and tagging people who ask questions. Yeah, thanks for being here, man. Really appreciate it. It was an honor, and we will tell people to check in at the Mythic X Discord in 3 or 4 days and see if they've gotten the date for the pre-sale. It should be in about a week from today. Um, and other than that, is there any? Do you want to go ahead and land the plane, Battle Ace? Tell listeners the last thing that you want them to think about before before they go.
Yeah, I mean, we're pretty excited about this project. I think the whole concept of DeFi, where we are in the crypto space, is very much so one where there's a lot of experimentation, trying to take the best of the past. If you're doing it well, taking the best of the past, pulling it together into something new that hopefully works better and helps people both make money and has a good and use. And we think we kind of have that in this project. Um, and obviously, like we have a great team, and we're very dedicated to seeing this project succeed. So in terms of kind of at least when I look at projects, in terms of the primitives, to see if it's something to put money towards. And again, money, you only want to put money that you are okay kind of losing, right? No one's going to try to lose anyone's money, but like we are in DeFi and in crypto, so we just gotta just make sure that you're okay financially speaking by putting money into it, but just very much so like we believe in this project. We think it has a huge potential where we're trying to learn from both the positives and negatives from what came before us, and build something kind of completely new here in the space, which we hope people will realize, and we hope you guys help us build it. Any feedback uh, is always welcome in our community. So yeah, just join our Discord, say hi. People are kind of around, and we'll be releasing more information in the coming days.
Wonderful. And I will get this posted on YouTube immediately, and then it'll probably take a couple hours to upload and process. But I will be posting the link in the Mythic X AMA chat and in some other places, and I'll give it to the Mythic X team uh, basically immediately. Yeah, thank you everybody for being here. Thank you, Battle Ace, for I know that there was a lot of pressure on you because the other team members were having some technical difficulties, and even though they were here, they couldn't use their mic. Thank you, Mythic, for being here as well. Mythic is on the Mythic team. Um, yeah, I think that's it for my piece. Thank you, everybody, from Fear versus Greed, and we'll hope you'll come back for the next one. I hope you'll check into Mythic X.
Yeah, pleasure chatting with you, Caraway. Great to connect, and thank you for having us.
You're welcome. Thank you. Have a good day, everybody.
All right, bye.